one of the things that we might think about with rituals is that they do invite presence, especially when they're done well. So even if you unconsciously created that ritual, you invoked your senses in a way that it is moving you to that state that you desire.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. My new best friend, Danielle's with us today, and I am so excited to talk about this because we all experience stress. We all experience overload. But the idea is, how do we get rid of it before we hit that burnout? Or if you're already starting to burn out, what do we do about it? Danielle's going to help us learn about some tiny rituals we can do to help let that go before it builds up. And if it's already built up, how to start letting some of it out. But before we get started, let's get a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list the coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LaraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. All right, Danielle, the information about you is in the show notes, but I'm really excited to hear about some of these rituals that will help me let go of some of my most stressful days. Can you help me?
Oh, I would love to help you. So, so I want to start out and maybe explain a little bit what I mean by ritual.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So a lot of times I find that when people are burnout, they actually start thinking about habits that they can go to. But the trouble with habits is that habits are designed to actually eventually be unconscious. So if you're that space in your life where you're just living on autopilot, you wake up in the morning, you get the kids up, you feed the kids, you get them out the door, they get home, you do their laundry, you do all of those things, and you feel like you're going through the motions, but you're not feeling the meaning behind the motions. Stacking some more good habits isn't going to help you because habits are designed to become unconscious. So you're not going to get out of autopilot by doing things that put you on autopilot. So what I love about rituals is that rituals are actually designed to transition us from one state to another, from our current state to our desired state. And so, what I would recommend is that you find places where you need a transition, where you need to move from one state to another, and that you put some tiny rituals in those places to really help you reconnect to yourself, reconnect to meaning, and re-energize yourself if you're in that place of burnout.
My mind is just flooding with all these transition points in your life. I'm now out of bed, transitioning to getting ready, transitioning to getting at the office, and transitioning to getting back at home and then to bed. And there's so many places that I can fit these little rituals. I know I had one person who had their keys, and their process of putting the keys on the hook was letting go of work for the day. And they just stood there for a little while and processed it. And I know my husband will come home from work on a really stressful day. I don't even see him until he's done watering the backyard that didn't need to be watered. But it's his stress relief. If I see him in the backyard, it was a tough day. And I just let him be there with himself. So I think sometimes we unconsciously build these rituals. But what are the ideas? Because I think there could be so many ways we could just do that transition and be our best self.
I love that. And I love all those examples because they're simple and they don't take a ton of time. Because if you are in that space where you're feeling like you're just going, 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 the idea of adding anything sounds like, oh, I can't do that. But so what I love is the examples that you gave are ones that are really quick and simple. So I teach something called the RISE ritual method. And RISE stands for reflect, intentional planning, sensory activation, and embody the story. And so the first thing that you want to do is reflect. What do you want this ritual to do for you? What is the current state that you're in? and where do you want it to move you to? So the example of the keys I love, right? I have busy work brain and I want to turn work brain off. I want to hang up those keys. I want to take a deep breath and I want to say, I am present for my family. And so if what you want is to be, I want to be in mom mode now. So transitioning from busy work brain to mom mode, that simple ritual and to reflect and to name that transition that you want to make is the first step.
I love that because sometimes I unconsciously I mean, I shouldn't say unconsciously. I deliberately choose to do things, but I don't know why.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, take the watering in the backyard and or putting up the keys. I don't know why I pause here and take a deep breath, but I do. So you've ingrained that ritual, but why is it helping?
Ooh, yeah. So, one of the things that we might think about with rituals is that they do invite presence, especially when they're done well. So, even if you unconsciously kind of created that ritual, you probably you invoked your senses in a way that it is moving you to that state that you desire. We might think about really big rituals like marriage, right? Before you go into a marriage ceremony, you're single. By the time you leave, you're now married and you have to file your taxes differently, right? And so those rituals literally transform us. They shift the way that not only we see ourselves, but also how other people see us. And what I really like about the example that you gave is, taking that pause and that deep breath. There's something about that that's probably engaging your senses and it's creating a physical experience. So we like to reflect and kind of name what is the state that we're currently in and where do we want to move to. And then from there, we want to intentionally plan it. So, because rituals can be powerful, even if we didn't intend to create a ritual, but when we do intend to make them and we infuse them with the meaning, the why that you were saying, it's even more powerful. So, the intentional planning, the I in it, what that really does is it helps us think, well, when am I going to do it? And how long do I want to spend? And where am I going to do it? And thinking about those things and making sure that all of those decisions are aligned with that desired state that you intend to move yourself to.
Yeah. So, do you have some I mean, I came up with one. I'm sure that you've thought of some others. I know sometimes I say, do it while you're on the toilet, do it while you're brushing your teeth, do it while you're in the shower, because these are places where you're already present and there, and just adding more to that same 10 minutes, not adding another 10 minutes of stuff to do in my life.
Absolutely. So, one of my clients, she is a school teacher, and she was having a really hard time shifting from being in teacher mode to coming home and being present for her family. Also, she, was kind of wiped out from the day. Um, our teachers are amazing. I have no idea how they are on all day long with kiddos just running wild. And so, one of the things that we decided is why don't you just do your ritual in your car? And so what she would do is she packed a little ritual box that she kept in her car, and she would pull into her driveway, and before she shut her car off, before she walked into the house, she would just do a really tiny ritual. She would write down a few things that she was grateful for that day on a pad of paper that she was keeping in her car. She said a little prayer that was an important part of her practice, and then she took a really deep breath, and then she shut off the car, and by the time she slammed the door, she was ready to be present for her family. And so, like you said, you know, it's great to intentionally plan it in a way that meets that desired state. But it's also important to intentionally plan it so that you'll actually do it. you know, I'm always like the best exercise is the stuff you'll do. The best, dissertation is a done dissertation, right? And so I love the idea of where are you already present? Where is a place that you know that you'll get it done and to do it there? But you do want to activate those senses too. I think that's really important. And whether you're in the shower or brushing your teeth, there's all sorts of sensory things going on there that you could draw from.
Yeah, I used to, and it's like, now that I'm retired, I bathe more because I like the long, relaxing
Mm.
time than the quick shower and get out the door. But I would remember sitting in the shower, just going, letting it wash the stress. Like it was the thought process of it's coming through me and out and releasing all the things that I want to let go so that as I walk out the door, it's a fresh me. And so it was that visualization in the same process I was already doing. It just added more depth. I felt less stress. I wasn't stressed to go to the office anymore. It was like, I'm ready. And
I love
so
it. Yeah.
just little things like that. It's just what's the visualization going behind it? And it can be the same thing you already do.
I love that. I love what's important about that is that you attach meaning and symbol to the actions that you were already doing. There's actually a really wonderful study that a few scholars did, and they gave rituals to people. They said, here's a sequence of actions, and they were really random. And I believe that it was athletes that they were giving them to, and they said, you need to do this before you play your game. And what was interesting is even though they were completely random actions, that naturally the participants in the study started assigning meaning and significance to those actions and kind of had created the story that those actions were going to make them really great at their sport. And so I love this that, like, wherever you're at, by attaching meaning to actions you're already doing, you're shifting it from a routine to a ritual.
Yeah, how can we do that? I mean, I know that there's places in my life that I was able to sit something like that, but what are some of the other areas that would be easy to stack on this routine and meaning with?
Yeah. So I want to share another story because I think that that might be helpful.
Oh,
'Cause there are all sorts of places that we can do this. Um, I had another client who was just feeling a lot of guilt for having mom rage. Her son was having tantrums and they were going through just a challenging period of time with him. And she was frustrated with herself because he would have tantrums and she'd lose her temper. And she didn't want to be in mom rage mode. And so one of the things that we talked about is I was like, well, how would you like to be for your son? Like, how would you like to show up in those moments? And she said, I want to be a safe place for my son. I want to be his safe place. And I said, okay, so how do we activate safe place Sarah in those moments? And so, one of the things that she talked about is I want to take a deep breath and I want to open my arms to offer him a hug. So that and how do I make that pretty automatic? So that if he's having a tantrum, I start feeling my heart rate increasing. I start noticing mom rage. How do I interrupt that with a deep breath, open my arm for a hug, and become safe place Sarah? And that was such a huge shift because it helped remind her in those moments, no, I want to show up differently. And so I would really start and see where are just those spaces where you want to attach more meaning. If you're really frustrated doing the dishes every single night, how can you say, I'm doing these dishes as an act of service for my family where I'm modeling behaviors that I want them to have, right? If you're waking up in the morning and you find yourself, finding all of the shoes and trying to get them organized before people leave the door, can you shift that as you do this, you can think, I'm organizing our physical space so that our minds might be clear as we enter the day. And so you can just identify some of those places where you're feeling a little resistance, a little tug, and say, how can I shift this so that it feels infused with meaning? And it might feel like some BS when you start, right? Like it might feel like, I'm not sure I believe that when I'm moving the shoes. But there is something about the repetition of it and you coming up with that yourself, like, and identifying this is a space that I want to shift how I feel around it. And if you do that over and over again, it's going to start to hit differently.
I like it. I remember a time when my son, years and years ago, would just start driving nuts. And I finally just say, you know what? I think he just needs attention. So it's like, I can tell that you need a hug. Let's go sit on the couch for a while. Like, it was just that I didn't. think of it as a ritual, but I knew the second he got that, I said, "No, you're staying here till you're done, till you feel like you're done with the attention." Like he'd start to get up and like, "This is dumb." I was like, "No, we're gonna stay here for a minute till I could, till we calm down." And then we was included because I definitely needed to calm down too. But what a difference when I started. I think he was probably 12, hitting those teenage years. It's like, you might not want a hug, but you're getting it.
Yes. Yes. Well, and like it probably shifted your state, that by the time that you left that couch, that space, the way that you felt about each other shifted, the way that, your mental dialogue had probably shifted. And so, yeah, that's a ritual.
You have these things, "I don't have time to do this," and, get out of my face." But when you surrender to, "This is more important right now," and it's, where are your priorities? What
Mhm.
is my priority is a happy family over clean dishes. I might not have time, but I'm gonna do this because it's a priority.
Absolutely. One of the things that has emerged in conversations with people lately is, I keep hearing people saying, I'm burnout, I'm burnout, I'm burnout. And as I dig a little bit deeper, because there's all these different ways that we kind of feel stuck. We feel, you know, flat, sometimes. And I've been really interested in like how can we get to the nuances of that stuckness. And what I realized, I actually learned this from a student of mine. I'm a full time professor, and my student was giving a presentation, and she said, burnout and demoralization is not the same thing. And I was like, whoa, what? And what she explained is that burnout is when we really don't have time and we've just been going and going and going, and now we're running on empty. She said that demoralization, though, is when you feel like there's things that you want to do and you know you should do, but you feel blocked from being able to do it. And I was like, oh, because I think that some people are burnout and we really just need pause. We need rest. We need restoration. I think for others of us, if you feel like, oh, I've been resting, I've been sleeping, I've been taking the weekends off, and I still don't feel like connected, then you might be demoralized. You might know exactly the things that you need to do in your life that would give you that sense of meaning, but something's blocking you from being able to do those things. And I think that I know for myself that I've experienced both, but they call for slightly different rituals.
Okay, because I'm thinking about it, and like, I am burned out of this job, but it really was that one person that
Ooh, yeah.
just was caused conflict all the time. It was did anything to demoralize people, but I didn't look at it as that. I just looked at it as tired of dealing with them, and I'm moving on. So it would be demoralization, and I called it burnout.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that the reason that it's important to name it is because I do think that slightly different solutions are needed. That, like, if you're truly burnout, there is an element of depersonalization that comes with burnout, but a lot of times it might just mean that our workload is too high. But when we're demoralized, it means that we probably need to do something to create more meaning and to be able to get to doing the work that matters. And, it sounds like with you, that might have been one person was bottleneck there.
Yeah, it was, and, it was funny, he had changing jobs, how quick that just was gone. It's
Oh,
like there was no more of that person that's constantly just pulling you down. And you might run into it at more than one job, and you might never run into someone like that again. Or you might have a whole office full of them. It depends on the culture. But, it really is up to us to choose the way how we get through or overcome or rise above, whatever word you want to use that helps you change the way you're looking at the perspective. And it's like, why should I leave my job? He's the one that's being the whatever word you want to insert here.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, and I'm like super proud of you for removing yourself from that situation if it wasn't a healthy one. Because whether it's burnout or demoralization, those are both unhealthy spaces to be in, and trying to find a solution to that becomes really important. I remember the first time I read it's Emily Nagoski have a book called Burnout. It says Burnout, Burnout, Burnout on the front, and it was a really empowering book for me to read because what they argue is that a lot of times we're like, well, I'm in a stressful situation. So what do I do? Is the only way for me to quit my job? And sometimes that really might be, but they remind us that there are all sorts of things that we can personally do, individually do to help regulate our nervous system so that even if we are in a space where we cannot change the environment, we can't change our circumstances, that there are some things that we can at least get ourselves to a baseline level of well-being to do. And, that might be, they have a whole list of different things like exercise, meditation, um, spiritual practices, silence, meditation, so they have a whole list of them. And some of it is just like learning, I'm experiencing this sort of stressor right now. What are the things, what is my go-to way of regulating my nervous system when that stressor hits?
I love the way you said that, "I am experiencing," because I try to talk people into making that I am not stressed. I'm experiencing stress.
Ooh, yeah.
Changing your mindset of how it is. This is temporary versus it's permanent. And how do we just, I'm experiencing extreme stress right now and I'm going to do something about it. It's so
Yeah.
much more empowering.
Jean, that's such a good reminder of the way that our language around things can have such a huge impact on how we think about it because I love that adding the experiencing kind of distances it from our identity, right? I am not a stressed person. That is not my being, my state, It's that I am experiencing stress at this moment. It's not a part of who I am. And I love that.
Yeah, and this demoralization, I wonder how much of the people that I talk to that are burnt out are actually in one or the other state. Is there any statistic or anything about that? I mean, to me, it's brand new, so I know nothing about this. I mean, I knew the word, but I never thought of them as connected.
Well, so after my student gave the presentation, I started doing a lot of research on my own because all of a sudden it was kind of an aha moment for me. And I actually came across a book called The Caring University. There's actually a lot of different journal articles, especially around healthcare workers and teachers that distinguish between demoralization and um, and burnout. And a lot of that research was really starting to be done, especially during 2020. So when teachers and healthcare workers were in the midst of COVID, people really started studying this. But there's this book by Kevin McClure called The Caring University. But in it, he distinguishes between burnout, demoralization, and disengagement. And, I'm not sure exactly the percentage of what people are experiencing, but I think that it's really, really interesting. And, from there, I started to think about my own clients that I work with and all the different ways that they'd experience stuck. And I'm a little bit of a research nerd at heart. And so I started taking all of my client sessions and I started coding that data for different types of stuck. And I actually revealed like 6 different types of stuck that I felt like my clients were experiencing. And then I started thinking about, well, what's the different ritual that each type of stuckness might be helped by? And again, like something that's really quick because, we live full lives.
If we can do it at the same time as something else, why not? You
Why
know?
not?
But if you do need that I am alone, there's nothing else going on, that's okay too. If you really want to go, I have a meditation corner in our house. Yeah, it's quite big. It's not just a corner, but it's just a room that on both sides there's sitting mats and stuff. And if I need it and I need to get down there, you know that I want to be left alone. If I'm doing it any other place, go ahead and interrupt. I'm going to be fine. But it's kind of like my husband watering the trees. There's times when we need that solitude to actually let go. or release that thing that's just building up.
Yeah. My mornings are kind of my leave me alone time. And it's so important for me. I do a little bit of journaling, I do a little bit of reading. It's when I do my own spiritual practice. And it grounds me, it keeps me connected. I can think, how do I want to be today? And how am I going to show up in all the things that are on my calendar? And it's so important to center myself in that way. And I do have different versions of that ritual, right? So I have, my 60 minutes, I woke up early, had some energy, and like, let's get cozy version of the ritual. And I have the 6 minutes, let's move it, the alarm didn't go off, let's go version of the ritual. But both are really designed to still really quickly move me to that state and just take a moment to get myself to that state of being where I'm calm and I'm centered and I'm grounded and ready to take on the day.
I love that because you have your backup plan, and you're going to still stay consistent with your ritual. I'm going to do this every morning, and you do it. Whether it's an hour or 6 minutes, you still feel complete. And how great is that you know that I can do this in 6 minutes and I can do it in an hour? You can take what you need.
And I definitely know that on mornings, if I don't do it, that if later I'm feeling scattered or I am a little ragey, I can usually reflect and go, what's going on here? And I go, oh, I didn't do my ritual this morning. And it's showing, it's revealing itself. But then it is really nice because even if I did do it and I'm feeling off in the day, to know I have these tools, these resources within me that if I can just take a moment to pause, I kn I have the tools to reground myself, recenter myself, and shift my state, even if I'm having a gnarly day.
One of the things that I did is I built myself a playlist that was 20 minutes long. And when I had one of those days at work, I said, I'll be back in 20 minutes or 25. And I would go outside and turn on that playlist with my headset and just let everything else go. And that was my reset time before I went back in the office. And it's like, I'm one of those people that always ate at the desk, always ate through lunch, stayed early, got there early, stayed late. I could have said that backwards, um, but it's those things that you do need a time. And it might not be every day, but when you do, are you ready? Do you know how you're going to do it? And it's that pre planning. Next time I get this kind of stressed, how am I going to manage it? And create that ritual from stress to I'm ready to take on the day again.
I love that. And even just the recognition that, ooh, I'm not in a great state right now. I need to do something. Like learning to catch yourself. It's like meditating. You mentioned, your meditation room. It's like, oh, I'm staying with my breath. I'm staying with my breath. All of a sudden, I'm thinking about my to do list, bring it back to the breath, right? Like when you notice, I'm not in my desired state right now. I'm gonna tell people at work I'm taking 20 minutes. I know what to do, and every time that you can catch yourself I remember one time I was in a meeting, and it was really contentious, and one of my colleagues stood up in the meeting and was like, "I'm leaving. I need to go take some breaths." And it was so bizarre, like, at the time, I'd never seen anything like that, and we were, like, in the midst of a really heated discussion, and she came back and she was ready to engage, and it was such a healthier conversation. It wasn't just me and her, it was a whole group of us. It was such a healthier conversation, and I was like, what a beautiful thing to model. To recognize, like, this is getting heated. I don't really like how I'm showing up, and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna step out and take some deep breaths. I need to do that if we're gonna continue." And I was like, I wanna be able to be brave enough and aware enough that if I need to do that, I can do it.
Yeah, and I've been in those meetings and you say, "Hey, why don't we all step out for 5 minutes? We'll be right back." And give everybody that reset time. Maybe only 2 are gonna take advantage of it. But if you're feeling that and even if it's yourself and you need to step out, you kinda can do that. It's like, "Hey, let's take a break. It's 12:52, let's be back in 8 minutes. See you at 1. And everybody gets that moment to come back with more clarity.
I wish that we would have thought to all follow her out of the room at that time. I think that this is one of the things when we were talking earlier and you asked, about the rituals, that it is about connecting to the why, but it's also really getting us out of our heads sometimes and into our bodies. Because to be able to recognize that things are getting contentious, it's not always just like a head rational realization. Sometimes it's like, oh, my heart rate is up right now. My hands are sweaty. I'm really tense in my shoulders. And and I really love that the rituals I do not only connect to me, why am I doing this, but they bring me back into my body. So, you know, I will say for me, doing the dishes is a habit. I honestly just don't need to be that present when I do my dishes. But if I wanted to turn it into a ritual, paying attention to the smell of the soap and the feel of the warm water over our hands and turning that into a sensory experience that then we attach the meaning of caring for our family with, it does shift it for us.
Yeah, if you're holding the stress in your neck, you could wipe that dish and go, I'm wiping the stress off my neck. You can shake your head, but just that thought process of how that you're releasing it, just the thought and the movement behind it just adds so much more power to have it actually go. And so make it up. Just like it doesn't have to mean anything to anybody but you. Like, I'm tying my shoe. I'm putting my safety in my shoes and tie, whatever it is.
Yeah, and conduct some experiments. Test it out. Well, what if I thought this while I took a shower? What if I thought that taking a shower was actually me washing all the stress off of my skin? I love that little space of what if. Like that imaginative potential of, well, what if I tied my shoestrings and as I did that, I thought that I was pulling myself back together. you know?
Yeah, it's the thought process. So, what you do every day, what is it when you pick up your water and you drink some? I'm letting in something fresh so that the old can be released.
Oh, you're good at that. I like your statement. Uh,
But if you do it, it's something you do anyway. If you can add that thought process to it, see how much more empowering it is.
oh yeah, and then to take the things that you're doing on a regular basis and really infuse them with meaning, that's just so much better than going through the motions. Especially if we have to go through the emotions no matter what.
No matter what, you got to do this. Have to drink. You might die in a few days, but you don't have to. If you do, here's a way you can think about it besides just, I'm thirsty.
I love that. I love that. And, I think that that has been so empowering for me is to go, where are the spaces in my day that I do have the ability to shift my posture towards them? And what is a simple thing that I can do to help me shift that posture? And what a wild thing when we get to decide how we're going to move through things each day.
Yeah, I had a friend at the office that she would, when she needed a break, she went to the restroom and she sat there until she felt she was done. That was her safe spot. Nobody knocks on your stall door and says, are you done in there yet? They just let you go. And that was her safe spot. And she would come back out feeling just looking lighter. And, it's funny, not skinnier, lighter, less load. And doesn't that feel good when you can actually feel like some of the load is gone?
Absolutely. Before I started doing a lot of this work, I was in a place where I was feeling incredibly flat while feeling overwhelmed at the same time. It almost didn't make sense. Like, how do I feel so empty and so scattered at the same time? And a lot of it, I was going through postpartum anxiety. I had a newborn. I also had just, met a really important career milestone. And yet at the same time, I was incredibly unhappy in my work. And I didn't feel like I had a ton of agency at that time around my work, that I didn't get to decide. And it was through little rituals like this that it opened me up to, Danielle, you can shift how all of this feels. And there are a lot of ways that the circumstances of my work have gotten even more challenging. And yet I feel more fulfilled, more invigorated, more energized because I think that I've been able to create all of these, find all these little gaps and these fissures where I can wiggle in and I can say, this is how I am going to move through this moment.
When it's your choice, how much more empowering it is. You can move through the same moment, but I choose to move through it this way,
Mhm.
you're empowered, not just doing something.
Absolutely.
I
Abs-
like that. Do you have some other ideas? I mean, what are some more examples of how we could create a ritual or a transition? So let's talk about heading to the work. How do
Mhm.
I transition shutting off my home life? You don't want to shut it off completely because you love those people and transition into work mode. What are some ideas we could use?
Yeah. So, one, again, I would have some sort of, this is where I'm going to do my open my workday ritual. And this is my opening action. I like one that's just, it could be as simple as I'm turning on the light in my office, right? But something that marks, I'm at work now. I have work brain on, activated. Let's go. Um, and, for me, one of the things that I really like to do is to sit down and to do a little bit of planning right when I start my day. And it doesn't have to be long. It might be, I'm going to look at my calendar and then I'm going to go, what are three things that if I did by the end of today, I would feel satisfied. I'd feel fulfilled. I feel like I did the thing. And I try to write those things down and because pen to paper makes a huge difference for me. And from there, a lot of times that helps focus me, that helps remind me, well, what's important today, what are my priorities. I do think that prioritization, you brought it up earlier, is this thing that we all want to prioritize, but priority oftentimes means one, not and I think that that's really hard for us. And I think that in a world full of all sorts of choice and all sorts of noise, that activating our prioritization muscle does take some work. And so, if on a daily basis, you can ask yourself, well, what are my priorities? What are the most important things that I can do and limit it? So, for me, that's three. If you want to start with one, go for it. And that really helps focus me in. Like it helps narrow, there's all this noise. What are just those three things? And how do I zero in on them? And that's really, really grounding for me.
And when we're setting priorities, I like to ask the why.
Mm,
If I
yes.
think work is my priority, why? It's the money. Okay. If it's the money, why is money the priority? If it's to keep a roof over my house, okay, why do I need a roof over my head, not house? If it's to have, if it's to stay warm and sheltered. So if you break it down, you get the real why. What is my real priority here? Is it so that my kids have a place to call home? What is it? So I have a place that is mine and nobody else crosses the line. If you really ask the why down, why is it this? Why is it? You get to the root. And you may have thought work was the highest priority. You get to the root, it's really your family or it's really a fancy car, whatever. Why do I want prestige? Okay. Is that why work is the most important? So it kind of gives you that extra depth. into your priorities and helps you really look at, is this really my priority?
I love that. It gets to the goal of the goal. you know? And, one of the practices that I was doing for a while, is the daily top three. So I would sit down and I think, what are three most important things that I can do? But one of the shifts that I did to that really was effective for me is at the end of about 2 weeks, I would look at my list of threes from every single day and I'd start looking for the patterns. And if, for example, I say that my family is a priority, and yet all of my daily top threes were about work, what's going on there? Or if I kept saying, nope, exercise is a priority for me now, and I'm not exercising, I'm not exercising, and I'm not exercising, what's going on there? And actually, that did happen for me. Exercise was one that I was putting on there. I love movement. I love moving my body. And after I'd had my first kiddo, it was not happening. And I was frustrated with it. And I realized, you know what? It's not a priority right now. It really, truly isn't. I keep writing it down because it feels like it should be, but it wasn't a priority. Sleep was. I was so sleep deprived. So I gave myself permission to sleep for, like, let's make that the priority. And so I did that. And after about a month, I was already experiencing a pretty huge change. And I was like, okay, now that I'm sleeping, do I think I could make exercise a priority now? And I said, I think I'm ready. And lo and behold, I was able to follow through. And it didn't feel like I had near as much resistance. And so I think that we can, I love the questions that you're asking, the why, because it helps us get honest with ourselves.
Yeah, why is exercise my priority? Because I want to look good? Why is looking good a priority? Or because I want to be able to move? I don't care what the why is, but why? And really just getting down to that core. What is my core priority?
Yeah. And like for me, at that moment, I wanted to exercise because it makes me feel good. But I wasn't feeling better when I was trying to exercise through chronic sleep deprivation. And so I had to go, hey, something's going on here. And it helped me get honest with myself.
I love that. Yeah, because that's when we're honest with ourselves, we are able to make more changes because we now know. I now understand my motives, the whys, and feeling good is my priority. Exercise used to do that. Now it's sleep.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's so easy to think that we want to do something and then realize that it was a should. You're like, oh, I got that from Pinterest and it seemed kind of cool. And so I thought I'd try it on. and it turns out I kind of don't give a hoot about this.
You know what? But that's okay. I love the ideas. It's like going shoe shopping. I'm going to try on all the ones that attract me. Am I going to buy them all? No. There's only going to be a few that even are comfortable or even once might make my butt look sexy, but these are comfortable. What is the priority? Where do you really want to go? And if it doesn't matter. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever hits your body, your life. That's what we settle on. But this experiment, go for it. Try all the rituals you can. I have a book. Oh, what's it called? But it's all these rituals that you can do, like a friendship day, things that you can do on friendship day, things you can do on Thanksgiving day. And they kind of put it along with holidays so you can do these extra rituals. And I'll find the name and put it in the show notes for you. But it's it's just that extra something to make it more special than just another day.
Absolutely. I recently was chatting with someone about lunch time at the office. And we were talking about all the different little rituals that you could do over lunch. Like every time I take my first bite, it's going to be a gratitude bite. And I'm going to offer up a gratitude to someone that I'm working with. Or, you know, I can't work with music on, but maybe during lunch break, I don't know, everybody's talking about Taylor Swift right now. Maybe I'll blare out, some Taylor Swift. Or how can you do that to just shift the way that you're experiencing that lunchtime ritual And then how does that encourage you to actually just take a lunch break? Because so many of us don't. And yet it's so important to our well being and to us being our most creative, innovative, clear minded selves.
Yeah, I always felt like I'm making up for my weaknesses by working through lunch. I'm making up for my weaknesses by working late. Hey, everybody else has gone home. I must be weaker than everybody else because I felt like I was trying to prove that I was okay to be in the position I was. It was like, she gets shit done,
Yeah. Oh,
but at the expense of what?
yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, I think that so many women that I talk with are in this cycle of overcommitment. And not for everyone, but for many folks, it's because that's how we feel like we prove our value, right? If I say yes, then I'm going to be valued. If I stay late, I'm going to be valued. If I respond to every email I receive within 5 minutes of me receiving it, then people are going to value me. But if you recognize that your worth is in something so much deeper, then you don't have to keep saying yes. You don't have to stay late. You don't have to respond right away because that's not where your value lies.
So awesome when someone communicates that ahead of time. Yeah, like, oh my gosh, I had a boss that says, I only look at my email twice a day because if I looked at it all day long, I would do nothing else. So if you need me, do this. And it's
What a
like,
great leader.
yeah, it's like he's managing his time. He knows where his limits are. He knew that if he really needed me, he had us text him. But I'm sure that, I don't know, my age group's still very leery about texting because it costs so much money, but it doesn't anymore. I remember my first umpteen $100 bill from my kids texting. It's like, "Oh my gosh," and now you just have this one little fee, but beside the point. But when you know your limits, you're able to communicate it. When you're able to communicate it, you're setting expectations. When there's expectations set, that's your boundary.
Hmm.
That's you telling people how you're gonna respond. Don't be mad at me if you don't get an answer to my email till tomorrow because you didn't send it in one of my windows. So it just is helpful to have that upfront communication. So I've always tried to do it for when I'm talking to people is this is what you can expect. And that way I feel like at least I'm not leaving questions on the table because I had examples. I even had another boss that was like, if you're going to send me an email, you can only put one question in it. If you put more than one question, you will only get the answer to the first one. I do not read the whole email. And so you'd go like, okay, question one, email, question two, email. But you knew how to communicate and you knew how to
Yeah.
get the response. So if you have something that's unique to yourself, it's okay. It doesn't mean like, I can't spell worth crap, but I have spell check. I go, guys, what I'm typing on the screen that you guys are seeing may look funny. I will fix it before it goes out. And it's like, okay, it helps most of the time, but there are still people that would say, you're killing me.
Well, you know what I love about all of these examples, Lord Jane, is that you know yourself. In order for you to communicate those expectations, in order for you to communicate those boundaries, you have to know yourself well enough to be able to tell other people, this is kind of what I do and this is how I do it. And I'd love it if you could meet me here.
Well, and it wasn't on me, it was what other people did. But yes, the more that you know, you can be more effective.
And so that's one of the things too I love about having rituals is that I think it's a lovely way for you to learn about yourself. And, we were kind of talking about overcommitment. And one of the things that one of my clients worked on is creating just a ritual pause every time they were asked to do something so that they automatically weren't saying yes. Just a simple breath and I'm being asked something and recognize, do I really let me take a moment and ask myself, do I really want to say yes to this? And it was a quiet interruption, a deep breath, a ritual pause before ever saying yes. And what was cool about that is she learned to let that pause last longer and longer. So she started out and it was just a deep breath. And then as she got more comfortable taking a pause before responding, eventually she had made like a 24-hour rule that she wouldn't actually respond and say yes to something until she had 24 hours to consider it. And so I love the way that what is a really brief ritual can actually create even more space in our lives.
Yeah, that's great because what's the harm in saying, I've got to look at all the things on my plate and I can let you know tomorrow? No harm at all. Gives the expectation, lets them know that you heard them and that you're thinking about it. That's beautiful.
It is. It truly is.
Wow. I love all these little ideas. And it's like, maybe I'll go back to my 30s and start out. No, I'm just kidding. Don't want to do that. I like where I'm at. Retirement is fun. So I really, really think this has been great. I'm just trying to think if there's any last little questions that I have. We've talked about how the difference of burnout and whatever the other word was,
Demoralization.
demoralization. And I definitely think more of my burnout was demoralization than actually being worn out. We've talked about all these little examples and all these different pause places you could do your rituals or stack them. And so, what is left on that we could share? And if there's nothing, why don't you tell us how to get a hold of you, what you do, and oh, all about yourself?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I would maybe offer up to folks is that if you are struggling with your stuckness, you're like, I feel stuck, but I'm not sure if it's burnout. I don't know if it's demoralization. Am I just disengaged? Like, what's going on? I do have an assessment that will help you determine what kind of stuck you are. And then, from there, I'll look at that assessment. I do this by hand because I don't know. I really like to take the time to look at what people respond to. And I do it by hand and I figure out your results. I'll also offer a little ritual that could be a great place for you to start depending on what your stuckness is. And so you can find that at plangoalplan.com/stuck. And I'll make sure that I give that to Laura Jane to put in the show notes. But it won't take you very long. It's maybe a 5-minute assessment. And, you know, you'll learn about yourself and get a little ritual that's designed just for you. And so I would invite you to just take some time to learn to name and distinguish what kind of stuckness you have so that you can create the right kind of ritual to help you in the state that you're in.
I love it. So, is all of your contact different information at Plan Go Plan?
Yeah, you can find pretty much everything that you need. I have a podcast by that name, but you'll get what you need right there at plangoalplan.com.
Okay, that sounds great, Danielle. I think this has been fun. So, did you want to share that one thing that
Yeah.
what is that one thing we could try this week? We've talked about 1,000. If you had to narrow it down to just one, what would it be?
I would start by naming the space that you feel like you need the most shift in your states. And I would just go ahead and name what the desired state is that you want to move to and just start there. Just name it. Name it and see where that takes you.
So, what transition in your life is causing you the most? It can't even be bad things. It could just be where it's the hardest shift, the longest shift time, whether it's coming home and being with family or waking up in the morning or going to bed. Spend this week identifying where it is. And then what can you do to help that transition?
I
Is that
love
right?
it.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Friend, Danielle and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals, just people that have had a rough path, found ways around it, and want to share it with you. So thank you for joining and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, Let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.